Thank you, everybody. Today, I will discuss the nature of federal system. That is, what kind of federal state India is. You have been heard many more times that many states are always quarreling and saying something that the federal structure of the nation is withering away, and the Union government is not respecting the federal character of the state. So those who are always complaining about the federal structure of the state, I would like to tell to them the what type of federation actually India is. First of all, we have to know it. There are many more federal states in the world. So our federation is different from the many more federations of the world. So coming to the question directly, here the nature of the federal system, Indian federal system. So do you know where it is said that India is a federal country? So through constitution we are knowing each and every details of everything about the federal character. So could anybody tell me that it is where or somewhere it's written that India is a federal country? Is it written in the constitution that India is a federal country? No. Then if it is no, how you could say that India is a federal country? Yes, there are some ways to say that. So coming to the first topics, the Constitution of India, the article number 1, clause 1, what it says? One minute. Let me minimize this one. How to minimize this one? First of all, I have to here it is pause. What article 1, clause 1 of the Indian Constitution says? It says, India, that is Bharat, shall be union of states. So the term, the Constitution used here, the union of states, not like the American states, that is United States of America. Okay. So here we use the term union, not the federation. Why you use the term union? And how we could say that India is a federal country? So to say about that, we have to go to think about the framer of the Constitution, what said about it. Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, the chairman of the drafting committee, whose name is known to everybody, when he was submitting the draft constitution in the drafting committee, he said, Indian Constitution is federal in structure. That is, though the Indian Constitution is federal in structure, the committee preferred the term, the committee used the term union, and that is for certain advantage. What are these advantages? Because I will tell you later how the federation is formed. Our state's condition is different. That's why two certain conditions he referred in the Constitution. The committee did not take the term federation to be included in India for two reasons. That is, number one, India is not the result of the voluntary agreement among the units. India itself is a nation. And the second, that is, the states do not have any right to secede from the union. For two reasons, they prefer to use the term, that is union. So if you are not getting the trace of the term federation in the Constitution, how we are saying that India is a federal country? To say about that, Again, I will be telling you to go back to the history of the Indian Constitution or Indian lawmaking procedure. Since the British rule, if you are looking here, the 1858, the Government of India Act, since the British had taken the power of India, since then till the 1947, till 1935, that is Government of India Act 1935. If we look into that, before coming of the Government of India Act 1935, India was completely unitary state. Completely unitary state. There is no term of federation introduced in the system. It is only through the 1935, that is Government of India Act, there it is the term is the Federation of India, first time. Again, the India was not independent then time. The first time federation introduced in India and law system, that is the Government of India Act 1935, the Federation of India. However, that was not materialized due to some different conditions present there. So coming to the question, if we have to look the Federation of India, how and what type of federation the India is, we have to look the various provisions of the Constitution, how it is functioning. How it is functioning. To support the view of the Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, chairman of the drafting committee, how far he says that India is, though India is federal in structure, but we use the term union. So what type of federal? Let us see. So before saying that whether India is falling in the category of federalism, federation, federal system or unitary system, we have to find the way, the definition of what is federal state or what is federalism. So few states I am telling you the name that they are having the federal structure. United States of America, Australia, Canada, these are having the federal structure. Switzerland. So all of them have federal structure, but could you say that all of them are possessing the all equal qualities and equal features? If no, then the first difficulty of defining a federal state is that there is no unified definition of federal state. And second is that whenever we are taking to any country, whether it is federal, any country's constitution, whether it is federal or unitary, we are taking the account of only the United States of America, the oldest federation of the world, 1787. But whenever we are taking into account of only United States of America, we are leaving many more countries, those who are federal, from the nomenclature of federation. The classical view of federation is like that, and the constitution is defining whether it is federal or unitary depending on its functioning. So whether a constitution is unitary, purely unitary or purely federal, or it partakes or it takes the features of the both, and after ascertaining the features of the both, we can say the whether the constitution is basically federal or basically unitary. Again we leave the view of the traditional approach of federalism, and the liberal approach of federalism is saying that modern days constitution, if we are looking the constitution building in many more countries, that they are departing more and more from the pure type of federalism or pure type of unitary. So not a these constitution could not be defined in such a way that this is pure federalism or pure unitary. So how do you define? It depends how many features it possesses, whether it is basically federal or basically unitary. We can say depending on its how many features it possesses. So the term actually whether the constitution is federal or unitary, it depends how many federal features is possessed or how many unitary features is possessing. So matter is of degree. The federalism or unitary, it's now the matter is of degree, not of principle. It depends on the functioning of the constitution, not on the institution. Again, I am telling it depends on the functioning of the constitution, not on the institution. So, before coming to the conclusion, what type of federation India had, as I told you, we should have to know the minimum basic features. Those countries who are federal, which are federal in the world, what are the things common among them? On the basis of that, we can say, to which the political scientists are agreed that these are the basic minimum features of a country. On the basis of that, it could be said these states are, or these constitution are federal. If these points are being found in India, then we can say that yes, basically, or whether purely India is federal or not. Let us see what are these features. What are these minimum basic features? So, essential features of a federal polity. So, what are the minimum essential features of federal polity? You will get to see that dual government, there will be dual government. 4 points you should have to keep in mind. This is dual government, distribution of power, be it legislative, executive or judiciary. And third, supremacy of the constitution. Fourth, authority of the courts. So, what are the 4 points on the basis of which one a state or a constitution could be called federal or non-federal or unitary? So, 4 things we have to look into there. These 4 things: dual government, division of power, supremacy of the constitution and authority of the court. So, what is dual government here? What does it mean? In a federal system, there are 2 governments. One is the federal government and another state governments. So, how federal government is formed? First of all, you have to know the federal government or national government, how it is created. The federation is formed whenever few independent and sovereign states united together voluntarily to form a federal government or national government by surrendering their few rights and keeping in their own domain the rest for the administration of their common general affairs. So, what are the points you are getting here? Those who are creating the federation, these states are independent and sovereign. These states are independent and sovereign. When few states, not only states, they should be independent and sovereign. When few independent and sovereign states united together to form a federal government to serve their common administrative general purpose by surrendering their few rights and keeping the rest in their own domain, then federal government is formed. And this is done by them voluntarily. So, one form of government is there, that is federal government. They created and certain rights they have surrendered to them, the federal government, like defense, security, communication, finance, and the rest of the things they are dealing in their own space. Each state are dealing independently. Okay. The second is there will be division of power. So, division of power means and distribution of power, few things given to the federal government and the rest of the things are kept by the each states. So, division of power, each one is working in their own domain. And the third is supremacy of the constitution. How? In a federal polity or in a federal system, there are 2 constitutions. A state has its own constitution and federal has its own constitution. federal consisting many more states. So each state has their own constitution, has his own constitution, and federation has its own constitution. So they are getting their power through the source of the constitution. So each one is getting their power through the source of the constitution. Constitution is supreme. Whatever, if anybody is transgressing the power or territory of their constitutional power, transgressing their constitutional power and working in different fields, that is of some different states. If a federal government is making such laws which are affecting the state's constitution, then there will be the authority of the court to declare that null and void. That's why there should be authority of the court. So four things are very much clear. In a federation, there is dual government, division of power, authority of the constitution, and supremacy of the constitution and authority of the court. The court will finally say whether anybody or any state or federation is transgressing its constitutional power or not, and his saying will be the final. Okay. So let us see whether these four things are being found in Indian Constitution. Yes. How we are getting? The observation is like that. Supreme Court also in many more decision found that these four things are being found here. So if we analyze the very working of our constitution, we will get to see that we have the dual form of government, that is union government and state government. We have the supremacy of the constitution also, though in India there is only one constitution of India, and it includes the constitution of states also. And there is authority of court, that is independence of court. If anybody is transgressing, any state is transgressing its constitutional rights, then the court will finally say, as a independent judiciary, in our independent judiciary, Supreme Court is in the topmost hierarchy of the judicial system. As an interpreter of the constitution, will interpret whether any act of a state or union is transgressing its constitutional rights or not, and if it is transgressing, then it will be declared null and void by the Supreme Court. So these things are being found. So on the basis of that, it could be said that India is basically federal. India is basically federal. So because these four things are being found here, so basically these are basic minimum things for being federal, but it's not like that we are like any other federation of the world. So it could be said that India is basically federal, but in our constitution there are many more things that is included. Through that it could be said, later one by one I will be telling you, that we have a strong unitary bias also. So basically Supreme Court's observation is like that, whatever I told you. Again, two things will be very clear in Kesavananda Bharati case, that is 1973, Kesavananda Bharati case and Union of India in 1973, and S.R. Bomai case. It's clearly said that the federalism is one of the basic features of our constitution. So coming to the question, peculiar features of Indian federalism. No doubt, we, on the basis of the minimum basic criterion, Indian constitution fall in the category of federalism. But how far it differs from any other federalism of the world? So what are some peculiar characteristics of Indian federalism which are not being found in any other countries? So let us see these. So if we go to look into that, the mode of formation. Once I told you how federation is formed. Federation is formed like that. These are the independent countries, A, B, C, D, E, F, G. So these 7 independent countries, for example, I am telling you, not 7, 9, 10, it may be whatever it may be. So this is also independent and sovereign country. B is also independent and sovereign country. C is also independent and sovereign country. D, E, F, G, they are independent. Basic features of these countries are they are independent and sovereign. Now federation is not formed. These countries are independent and sovereign. Whenever they thought, they feel some threat or something else, and they feel them to be united for their common purposes. So voluntarily they are meeting each other. Means whenever these countries are voluntarily agreed to form a government to which they are surrendering their few rights and keeping the rest of the rights in their own domain for the administration of the common general concern. For which? For the administration of the common general concern. For example, these countries may feel that for their security purpose they need a broader government that will be looked after by them, and they will be rest of the things they will be think properly. So very few things they have surrendered to the federal government, to the national government, and the rest bulkiest things they have kept in their own domain, and they united and formed. Then it has given birth to the federal government. Is that condition existed in case of India? No. So what is the mode of formation? Whenever we became independent, were the states of our country autonomous or independent or sovereign? The British means provinces? No. Only one sentiment was there, Indian sentiment, national sentiment. So that the way the federation is being formed, that is not working properly in our case, because our states, before the formation or before the creation of the nation, that is India, that is Bharat, they were not, these states, I mean the British provinces, were not independent and not sovereign. So our country, our state, our constitution is not the result of the compact among the independent states. It's clear from there. So federalism in India is not a matter of administrative convenience, but one of principle. It's a very important line I am telling you. The same thing being asked, just it's written here. The question is given like that. It's the federalism in India is not a matter of administrative convenience, but a principle. Explain it. So how do you explain it? No doubt, the federalism in India is not a matter of administrative convenience. It's sure, because the states, those who created the Indian Federation, they were not independent. For the sake of administrative convenience, they did not form the federation. It's clear. It's simply the case of the principle. We can see we are following some basic principles of it. So when, first of all, where you will get the trace of the term federalism? That is the federation as envisaged by the Government of India Act 1935. So later I will be discussing about that, but first of very small clue I am giving you, that before 1935 Act and from the starting of 1857 even, the whole system of the nation was a unitary system. Nowhere there is a trace of any federation. It is only in 1935 Government of India Act that term federation is used. Little bit of autonomy is provided to the provinces to work in their own domain. and central government has very less control over that, and the central government has its control over these provinces through the governor's special responsibilities and discretionary power. Again, this federation has not been materialized due to some different reasons, because Indian states, those who are supposed to join, it was voluntary for them. As a result, they didn't join the federation didn't form. And here residuary power is vested in our case, the residuary power is vested in the union, whereas in case of Federation of United States of America, you will get to see the residuary power is vested in the state. So here we also differ from the United States of America in the sense of federation. No state has its own constitution. In our country, in a federation, you will get to see a state has its own constitution and federation has its own constitution. Each one was working on their own constitution, under their own constitution. But in case of India, the Constitution of India includes the both. The Constitution of India includes the Constitution of the Union as well as the Constitution of the states also. So we do not have two constitutions, only one constitution. The state's role is minor in the matter of the amendment of the constitution. What happened in case of federation, you will get to see how it differs from the United States of America, or the brightest example, the classical federation of the world. That's why I am telling you United States of America. So here we will get to see the role, state's role is very minimum in our constitution. What happens in case of federation? No part of the constitution could be changed of the federal government without the consent of the component units, that is states. Without states' consents, nothing could be changed in the federal constitution. Whereas in our case, in Indian constitution, we will get to see the states are playing very minor role in the amendment of the constitution. Only few things I am telling you, for that the ratification by the half of the states is required, and rest of the constitution could be changed by a special majority by the Union Parliament. Even for few cases, there is no need of for changing some provisions, there is no need of the special majority. It's like a simple legislation, it could be changed, and these will not be taking into account the amendment of the constitution also. So though there is a division of power, but in some cases union controls both legislative and administration of the union. Here we have already seen there is a division of power, because states are functioning. We have only one constitution which includes both the union and states also. So state is functioning here within the constitutional territory, within the constitutional limit, and union is also functioning within the constitutional limit. So there is a division of power. Though there is a division of power, in normal sense we are getting some administrative and legislative control of the union over the states are being clear. How? Let us see. What Article 201 says? Suppose a bill is going to be passed from a state legislature. To whom it will be sent? To governor. What government will do? He has many options to do, and out of many options, one option is he can refer the bill to the president. President can give his assent or not also. So if the governor is sending any bill to the president, or whatever, each and every bill it may be, and he is not signing there, yeah, or keeping it pending, the no bill will be taking place in act in a state. So the legislative control is like that. If a state is thinking that I will make law in my state list, even that will be sent to governor, and the governor may not sign it, may send it to the president for his consent. So in this way, the legislative control of a state is directly proved through this way. So under Article 155 or 156, it says the governor is appointed by the president in a state. He is the administrative head of a state. The governor is appointed by the president and holds office during the pleasure of the president. So legislative and administrative control you are directly seeing here, that is by the union in normal time also. So if we define the American Federation, what type of American Federation and our Federation, through simple words I am telling that American Federation, an indestructible union composed of indestructible states, whereas Indian Federation, an indestructible union of destructible units. In American Federation, that is United States of America, there are two sets of government, one sets of federation government, another sets of state governments. So nobody can destroy anybody else. These states could not destroy the union of federal government, and federal government cannot destroy the state government. So both of them are indestructible, whereas in our case the first is right, that is indestructible union. Nobody can destroy the Indian sentiment, that is Constitution of India or Indian government, India as a state. Nobody can destroy it. But whereas the states are concerned here, is the states are indestructible? No. The states are not indestructible. The states are destructible. So here in our constitution it is like that. So our observation, our federation is little bit loose federation in compared to American Federation. How? Our federation is an indestructible union of destructible units, because in any time we can change the name, boundary and area of any states. For that we do not need the consent of any states also. Here states have no need, no right to secede. Even the little bit of advocacy of secede will not be granted under the freedom of speech. That is subject to reasonable restrictions also. So how destructible units are, our states are how destructible through very few examples I am telling you. Here you will get to see consent of a state is not required for altering its boundaries by the parliament. If a parliament of India is thinking that we need to change the name of any state, we need to change the boundary of any state, we need to take the boundaries from one state and to few from others and to merge it and reorganize it in different way and provide a new state like that, it can be done. Again, this can be done in a very simple lawmaking procedure of the nation, ordinary lawmaking procedure of the nation. That should not be termed as the amendment of the constitution. Simple majority is needed by the parliament for doing this job. So very simple procedure. As a result of that, what happened? From 27 states, within 5 to 6 years after independence, from 27 to it reached to the 14. State Reorganization Act 1956. Again, the Union Parliament has to succumb to the demand of many new areas. As a result, many new states being formed through the, like Gujarat, and very recently Chhattisgarh, Uttaranchal, Jharkhand, Telangana, these new states are being formed. So here states are not independent, states are not sovereign, their name, areas, boundaries could be changed in any time. So in this way we are differing from the American Federation. So this integration I already told you, this of existing states has led to the formation of many new states, Gujarat, Nagaland, Haryana, Chhattisgarh. So no equality of state representation. What happens in case of federation, you will get to see in a federation each state is having equal rights irrespective of their population and size. They have equal say in the federal government. As a result of that, they are representing an upper house and a Senate, an American Senate equally. And their equal rights could not be diminished without their consent. But what happens in our country? The states are not equally represented in the Union Parliament. Take the case of upper house, that is Council of States. In case of Council of States, 1 to 31, that varying the states in their membership. So as a result, the state who is having very less member 1, and a result is a state which is having more member, that is 31, he has more, obviously has more to say about their own profit, about their own gains, about their own policies. A state who is having the only one candidate member in the upper house of the chamber, his voice would not be listened as the state who is having the 31 member in the upper house. Again, state of that is our Council of State is not representing the federal character, because out of 250, 238 members are from the states and 12 are not elected, appointed by the presidents there. So no equality of state representation we are getting to see. The states of Sikkim, in our case it's quite different. We have very first of all, state was Sikkim was a protectorate state. Then again it became the associate state after 34th amendment, sorry 35th amendment, and from associate to a full-fledged state it turned in 1997 by 36th amendment. Again, Constitution of India is providing some special features to some special states to meet their special needs. That is described in Article 371F to 371I, especially to meet their special needs, which is generally not being observed in case of any federation, because states are equally represented irrespective of their size and population. But in our case, it is different one. So in a short, if we are saying that what kind of polity we are getting to see in case of federal country, that is USA. So nature of polity is like that. It's generally dual polity, dual citizenship, and double sets of officials and a double system of courts. What is dual polity? There is dual form of government. I discussed it, federal government and state government. Dual citizenship. In a classic federation, that is United States of America, a person is first, he is a citizen of his own state where he borns, and he is also citizen of the federation, that is federal government, that is United States of America. So he is having two citizenship, one of his own state citizenship, another is federal citizenship. In our case, we have only single citizenship. A double system of courts. In United States of America, that is in classic federation, two sets of courts are there. Federal court, that is dealing the federal laws and federal constitution, and state courts, that is dealing the state laws and state constitution. In our country, it's a single system of court independent, that is headed by Supreme Court. So, we do not have two sets of courts. And again, we are not providing the double citizenship, no division of public services. In USA, there is divisions of public services. There is a federal government has their own sets of employees, whereas the state government has its own sets of employees. In our case, no division of public services. Generally, what happens, many more employees are provided by the states, and these employees being headed by the All India Service, IAS, Indian Administrative Service, they are controlled and they are implementing the union laws as well as state laws in their own territory, whether they are functioning in a state or in Indian government. They are implementing the both if the situation demands. And no dual system of courts, I have said. So, these are the divisions, these are the peculiar features of the Indian Constitution. Irrespective of Indian Constitution is, though it's basically federal, very minimum basic features of federal, that is dual government, supremacy of the Constitution, division of power and authority of the court. These four things are being observed and being found in Indian Constitution, but along with that some peculiar features are found. These I already told you one by one. Yeah. So, now coming to the next topics. Union control in normal times and a strong central bias. We have already found that India is a basically federal. So far this is established. The 4 point I have already remind you. These 4 things, minimum basic federal features, already existed in Indian system. Now the question lies, along with that the peculiar features I have discussed also. Again I am telling the point, the union control in normal times and a strong central bias. So how union is controlling in normal times the states? Did you heard about Article 249 of the Indian Constitution? What it says? 249 of the Indian Constitution, that is, power of the Parliament to legislate with respect to any matter in the state list in the national interest. Article 249 of the Indian Constitution clearly says, and clearly written there, the power of the Parliament to make laws in respect of a state list in the national interest. So, in detail I am explaining you, if the Council of the States takes the resolution by not less than 2/3 of its members present and voting, that it is in the national interest, the Union Parliament will make laws in a state list, then it is the duty of the Parliament to make laws on such regulations on the state list applicable to a part of the India or the whole territory of India. So, if a Council of States under Article 249, if Council of States by 2/3 of majority, at least 2/3 majority present and voting members, if a Council of States taking a resolution by at least 2/3 of its majority members present and voting, that Parliament will make laws in a state list, then it is the normal duty of the Parliament to make laws on such resolution in a state list. Again, what we are seeing, that is administrative relationship between Union and the Parliament, states. Article 256 to Article 257, Article 258 and 258A. What they are saying? Very clear. Article 256 is saying obligation of the states and union. obligation of the states and the union. Very simple. Article 256 and Article 257 says that is the legislative and administrative power of the states will be exercised in such a way that is it is not interfering with the legislative and executive power of the union. So, state will execute its executive power in such a way that it does not impede the executive actions of the union or legislative action of the union. In this respect, the union parliament can issue the executive directives to the union government can issue the executive direction to the states to follow it. Again, for example, I am telling you, for the construction or maintenance of certain roads or communications which is of national or military importance, that direction could be provided to a state, and a state is bound to obey that one, that direction. So, in normal times, we are seeing that Article 249 says with a national interest, union parliament may make laws in a state list. Article 256 and 257 and 258, 258A, they are also saying the same things. The state will execute its legislative or administrative action in such a way that it does not impede the legislative and executive action of the union. Again, from time to time, the union government may issue executive directions to the state government for the maintenance of or construction of communication. For example, the union government may declare any road, any state highways to a national highways, any waterways to a national waterways, and some task may be assigned to them to carry forward in this, to fulfill this goal. Then it will be the normal duty of the state to carry forward this task. So, these directions are being provided by the union to the states. Again, under Article 257 clause 3, very easy thing, very common thing you are getting, you are moving here and there by train, you will get to see that these are passing through various states and they are taken care by the states also. How and from where from the protection is getting? So, Article 257 clause 3 says that is it's normal duty on the state for the management of the railways or for the protection of the railways. From time to time, the union parliament may issue some directions to the states, and states will follow that. Under Article 250 or 258 or 258A, power of the union to confer power, it is to state in certain cases. Union may confer certain powers to a state to execute that one, and again state may confer certain powers on a union to execute that one. Article 365, the most important article in normal times, through which the control of the states is in the hand of the union parliament. We will get to see effects of failure to comply with or to give an effects to directions given by the union. So, clearly I said any directions given by the union government, whether it is followed by the state or not, so that will be observed under Article 365, failure to comply of the directions given by the state, sorry, union parliament. If union government has given any direction and state is failed to comply with, then under Article 365, it is clear that the president is getting the legal ground to declare like that the situation has occurred in that state, the constitution, the government of that country, or sorry, of that state will not be carried on in accordance with the constitution. So that is clearly making the ground of imposition of Article 356. So whenever any direction given by the state union parliament, or sorry, union government, and state is failed to comply with that, then under Article 365 it is clear that the situation has occurred in a state through which the government of the state will not be carried on as per the provisions of the constitution. So next to that, what will happen? The imposition of Article 356, that is precedent rule in a state. How that is happening? Again, the president is satisfied with the from the report of the government or otherwise. Mind the term otherwise. Whenever the president is satisfied with the report of the governor or otherwise, or he may satisfied in any way. That situation has occurred in a state where the state will not be carried out, in a state or any part of the state where the state will not be carried out as per the provisions of the constitution, then Article 356 will be imposed and the executive and legislative power will be taken of the state in the hands of the union parliament. And union government can make laws in the state list and take executive actions on that. So these are the normal times. So far there is no emergency, nothing has happened. These in normal times the union is controlling the state list and making laws and executive actions they are taking. How? The first of all I told you, with a national interest, if Council of States with a special majority, that is not less than 2/3 of its members present and voting, takes the resolution that union parliament will make laws in any matter of the state list for the sake of national interest, then it is the duty of the parliament to make laws. Okay? So in normal times. And next to that, administrative relationship, I have told you already, that is obligations of the states. A state will execute its executive power in such a way that it does not impede the legislative action or any laws made by the parliament or any executive actions of the union government. So Article 356, whenever it is imposed, no doubt the constitutional machinery, the constitutional government, the formed government actually of a state will be suspended, kept in suspension, and that will be directly taken in the hands of the union parliament. Union government will take care of that. All the legislative power and executive power will be exercised by the union government. So these are in normal times, but in case of emergencies, so while the federal system is prescribed in normal times, it's quite sure good. The Indian Constitution enables the federal government to acquire the strength of unitary system. So how it differs from the Federation of America? That we have the conditions like that, we have the basic minimum federal features which are being observed in all other federal countries, though these federal countries are little bit in varying in any other objects and principles or features. But along with that minimum basic federal features, we have unitary, in normal times the union control over the state list and state I have mentioned you. Along with that, there is emergency provisions in our constitution, while the federal system is prescribed in normal times. The Indian Constitution enables the federal government to acquire the strength of a unitary system in emergencies. Whenever the emergencies is imposed under Article 252, 253, 254 and 257, all the legislative and executive power of the states will be gone by. These will be directly controlled by the Union Parliament, Union government. So these are the coercive power available to the Union against the units of federation. These are not being observed in the federal countries. So we have some peculiar features. Along with that peculiar features of Indian political system or Indian constitution, we are getting to see. So we are having the strong central bias and strong unitary features. Even in normal terms, little bit we have seen through the constitutional article 259, 249, 256, 257, 258, 258A, and again last of all 365 article, and finally that is in normal times the president rule in a state. Okay. So coming to the question of, and in emergency there is no question, it is beyond question, the whole nation will be under the control of the Union Parliament. So this type of federation we have. So if we say the what type of federation is, what critics are saying about the federal character of the nation upon a constitution. A critic of the federal system, that is Professor Ware, he is saying a system of government which is quasi-federal. It is not completely federal, it is defined as quasi-federal, and unitary states with subsidiary federal features. He preferred to call Indian constitution as a unitary state with subsidiary federal features rather than a federal state with subsidiary unitary features. So this may be asked in a system of government which is quasi-federal or unitary state with subsidiary federal features rather than a federal state with a subsidiary unitary features. So just explain this one. So if you have all these points, each and everything in details, then we will be in a better state to explain this one. Professor Alexandrovich has taken a great pain to combat the view that the Indian Federation is quasi-federal. So he is a little bit differing from the view of the professor here, that it's could not be said like that, it's a quasi-federal, that Indian is a case of sui generis, that is, it is of its own kind. Indian constitution is it is of its own kind. The constitution of India is neither purely federal nor purely unitary. So constitution of India is neither purely federal not purely unitary, because it's not only including the federal features or not purely unitary features. It is the combination of the both. Like what is saying, that it is the union or composite state of novel type. It is of unique type of. It enshrines the principle that in spite of federalism, federal minimum basic federal features we have given, in spite of federalism, the national interest ought to be paramount. So we have the federal features, we have to accommodate the federal features by keeping in view the national importance. We have provided the federal features, along with that the national importance is of paramount important for us. Now we are coming to the topic, the working of the federalism in India, how it works. Since it's more than 71 years we have already passed, the Constitution of India is functioning. So how federal system, how federal provinces are being included here, how this is working. So this is the matter of question right now. So working of the federalism in India. So even though the unitary bias in the federal system features not altogether Udaya. So many people are, even politicians, you will get to see they are complaining the federal features day by day is waning and the union government is engulfing all the things. Yeah, so state are just shivering and they are dying out. They are not they are in a constant fear that anytime a state may impose the precedent rule and like that, or they are not working properly and not getting opportunity properly in their own field due to lack of some of the financial funds also. So the question is like that. Even though the unitary bias, but federal features not altogether wither away. For that, the examples and brightest thing I will be telling you right now. The unitary bias of the Indian Constitution is accentuated by two factors. Why and how? Because these state governments have to look forward to the Union government for their financial aids. The bulkiest financial aid is financial fund is in the hands of the Union Parliament, Union government. So these states are complaining that we have their own domain to work, but we do not have the enough resources to work on that, the finance. This is their number one complaint. An overwhelming financial power of the Union is not allowing the state to perform properly in their own domain, because they have to look for the grants from the state Union, and Union is granting to them as per their own suitability, as per as the states are explaining in this way. And comprehensive sweep of the planning commission, that is Niti Aayog, they are planning what to give and to whom and what and how. These things are decided by the Niti Aayog. So that is not in the hands of the states to decide. However, this criticism may have little bit trace in reality, but completely it cannot be said that it is with that intention that fund is in the hands of the Union. The fund is actually in the hands of the Union because all the states which you are getting to see in India, these are not equally developed. And if each states were provided or given the opportunity or freedom to behave and to work in their own periphery and to use their own resources, the underdeveloped stage would not have been developed. So by keeping in view the national importance first, the fund is in the hand of the Indian government. Again, the distribution of taxes are in such a way that under Article 269, 272 and 272, 270, so these are clearly proving that the Union is very much concerned the overall holistic development of the nation, so that a big state cannot appropriate its own fund, own revenue, and a small state, due to the lack of its own revenue, will not be in a bad condition, so that the distribution of resources through the taxation will be done by the Indian government. But nowadays the mutual interdependence between the state government and the Union has led to the growth of the cooperative federalism in many countries. So in case of our country also, Grandfather Austin A. Ketik, he said he preferred to call Indian federalism as a cooperative federalism, which produces a strong central government, yet it does not necessarily result with provincial government, that are largely administrative agencies of central policies. In fact, the federal system, what is here? The federal system in the Indian Constitution is a compromise between two apparently contradictions. The federal system in the Indian Constitution compromise between two apparently conflicting considerations. What are the two apparently conflicting considerations in Indian Constitution we are getting to see? So Indian federalism is apparently consisting two apparently conflicting considerations. Number one, the states are free and independent in their own domain, and that's number two, That is, national importance is of paramount. In case of any exigency, national will intervene. The freedom of the nation, the normal division of power with states, power to raise revenue with their own sphere, the need of the national integrity kept in view, the need of the national integrity and a strong union government, which the center of the section of the people is still considered necessary for more than 71 years of the working of the constitution. So we have the compromise, we have compromised two things in a systematic manner in our constitution, that is autonomy of the states to a certain extent in their own sphere, but national integrity will not be undermined anyway. So these things we have compromised in our constitutional system. Indian federalism as judicially interpreted. What is the observation of Supreme Court about the Indian federalism? So far already I have told you the Indian federalism has found these basic features, these minimum basic features, that is dual government, though through the same source of the constitution, supremacy of the constitution, dual government and authority of the court, independent judiciary, these are being observed. On the basis of that, the Indian constitution is declared basically federal with strong unitary features they are founding. So again the two cases I have already mentioned, that Kesavananda Bharati case of 1973 and S.R. Bomai case 1994. There it's clearly said the federalism is one of the basic features of the constitution, and Indian constitution is basically federal, and federalism is one of the basic features. So why such a federation or quasi-federation India adopted? There is some logic behind this. Why such type of federation? Why we didn't simply imitate the Western federation? Because our need was different from the Western. Their socio-economic background, their growth of the nation, nationalhood is different, and ours is different one. That's why the question lies, why such type of federation or quasi-federal system we adopted? So first point is like that, free flow of trade, commerce throughout the territory of India. If all states would have been like the states of United States of America, independent and sovereign, then was it possible to be a free flow of trade throughout the territory of India among these states? No. So that's why to free flow of trade, of commerce throughout the India and overall development of the nation by keeping in view first, we have adopted such a system. At the same time, the regional interest might not be disregarded. We have looked into that also. The regional interest is also looked into. And again, the final and third one, there will be somebody to say whenever there will be problem to take the question and resolve it. What is that one? There must be a power of intervention by the union in case of crisis to deal with the particular problem arising in any part of India. So Union Parliament will deal with that. So wherever any problem will arise, the Indian Parliament will deal with that. So we already through in this way the conflict and cooperation 71 years already passed. So Indian states, the states through conflict and cooperation has been working smartly in their own sphere for more than 71 years. Naturally, complaints of discrimination of states against the union are very common. Many more states are complaining that we are the victim of discrimination. How and when you are noticing this one? Generally, this case is being observed when a party is ruling in a state is different from the party in ruling in the union. They are complaining much more. So, in this case, the first of all, the state of Tamil Nadu moved to Supreme Court under Article 131. They were of the view that the state needs more and more autonomy to function. So, on that view, many more states which are having the non-Congress government at the then time in 1983 like that. So, they have joined. They, after joining from the opposition conclave, these opposition conclave were of the view that states should get much more power and much more autonomy to perform. However, those states, though united against the union, among them all states are not of the same view. Among them, they are of the view also, few states are of view also, that they want to increase their power, but not at the cost of the union, because a weak union government will be dangerous for the nation, to save the nation from the foreign aggression and from internal disturbances. That is why they have left that view, but all of the states are of the view that the states needs much more funds, financial funds, to execute their existing constitutional duties. All of the states is of the same view that we need the much more fund so that we can execute our own constitutional needs and policies. With that end, the Morarji Desai government, to appease these state governments, initiated plan assistance on theory, that is little bit of grants for specific states. So, survival of the federal system, how federal state is surviving India as a federal state, how the features are being surviving from the inception of the constitution. So, we will get to see the strong central bias, actually always it is not a worse as per the states as they are saying, but it is boon sometimes also. Not only that, the very clear thing is that if there would not have been any strong central government, the destructive forces of communalism, linguism, separatism could not be handled in this way. Even the state, that is union, is getting very much toughness to fight these things, very odd things. Without power, the union government could not do it. So, the federal system actually not withered away, it is the way of looking into that as the opposition party in a state, the party in power in a state and a party in power of the union. When there is a difference, the conflict arises much more and reaches to the peaks and moves to court, and through judicial system they are getting their own justice, as Supreme Court is a interpreter of the constitution. They are interpreting the constitution, and each one's domain, each one is getting the right, what is right and what is not. The coexistence of the government of the parties in the states and different than the party of the center is a clearly proof that our federal system is working, because each one is working within the limits of the constitution, within the peripheries of the constitution, like the case of the Kerala education bill. When the Kerala education bill was referred to the president for his assent, and again president referred the bill without giving his assent to the Supreme Court for his advisory opinion, then Kerala government thought it and expressed his discontent like that it's undue interference in the state affairs. But thanks to the Supreme Court, when even Supreme Court provided the advisory guidance, opinion to the President, and that was quite accepted by the Kerala High Court also, sorry, Kerala government also. New regions are constantly demanding statehood, and that already the union had to yield to such demands. So many more new states are being formed as states are demanding statehood, these areas. So another evidence is the strong agitation for greater financial power of the states, quite good. The case of greater autonomy for the states in all respects, Tamil Nadu, already I discussed. Plan assistance, already I told you, the Desai Award. The Sarkaria Commission in 1983, commission was formed, the Sarkaria Commission, the judge of the High Court in the name of, to look into the center-state relationship. However, he has submitted his report to the Indian government, but the Rao government till 1995 even did not accept the single recommendation of the Sarkaria Commission. So what it could be said? So far many things you have known about the Indian Constitution. So in conclusion, what could be said? What type of Indian federalism is like that? Indian federalism, quasi-federalism, or like that, or in fine, it may be reiterated that the Constitution in India is neither purely federal nor purely unitary. It is a unique combination. It contains the features of the both. So in a single principle, it could be said, in spite of federalism, the national importance is of paramount. So though our constitution is basically federal, but it possesses some unitary features. So our constitution is basically federal and we possess some unitary features. So in conclusion, it can be said that in fine, it may be reiterated that the Constitution of India is neither purely federal nor purely unitary, but is a combination of both. It is a union of or composite of a state of a novel type. It enshrines the principle of, in spite of federalism, the national importance should be paramount. So very few things to keep in mind, that is, Indian Constitution is basically federal with strong unitary features. That's all. Thank you.